everyone, welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name's Harrison and this is episode 30 of my Knitting and Crochet podcast, where I talk about knitting and crochet and sometimes some other things, but for a while it's been mostly knitting and crochet. I do have some cross stitch that I've just not touched since like February that maybe I'll get back to at one point, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. It's been 2 weeks like normal, so if you're new here, I post these every 2 weeks. If you enjoy this video, it'd be wonderful if you wanted to subscribe. At the time of filming, we're very, very close to 600 subscribers, which is fun. But also, if you like the video, feel free to give the video a like. I feel like I've said the word like too much there, but you get what I'm on about. I've got quite a lot to talk about today, quite a lot to go through, and I don't know what else there is to say. It's been quite a busy couple of weeks since I last filmed. Works, for those of you that are new, and I don't know if I say it that often to be honest, I work in marketing for a large retailer in the UK. It's been a very busy couple of weeks. We've got a lot going on. I had a massive presentation last Wednesday, which thankfully went very well, but now I'm on kind of the come down from the stress of preparing for that and all the other things. So I'm filming this on Saturday. Normally I film these on a Friday, but it was just too busy, so I'm very thankful it's the weekend. I'm hoping to make the most of the weekend and properly recover and recuperate, and then back at it again on Monday. But it's my birthday month, so I've got some time off around the bank holiday weekend that we have here in the UK. My birthday's on the 24th, which is the Sunday of the bank holiday weekend, so I've got some time off and we're doing some things with my family at that point, so I'm just kind of counting down the days. We are currently about 20 days from when we're going away for a few days, so I can probably make it through. Other than that, shall we talk about some knitting and some crochet? I have 3 finished objects, which I'm very happy about. I'm very happy I managed to get through these 3 things, so I'll talk to you about those. And then I have 4 whips to talk about. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a bit about kind of my goals for the next 2 weeks. I'm on a bit of like a finishing spree. I have some kind of, I want to clear some stuff off my needles, and also I want to maybe start making some new things. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that later in the video as well. And then we'll be done, and hopefully you'll have enjoyed, but if not, no offence taken. So shall we talk about some finished objects? You might have seen them in the thumbnail. I basically finished everything I was working on last week, which I'm very happy about. I will start with we'll go kind of smallest to largest, probably makes sense. So the first finished object that I have to talk about is the Troy Boy hat by Jimmy Does Knitting, which I finally finished. So this is an all over 1x1 ribbing hat. I've done the shorter of the 2 versions, so in the pattern it gives you kind of different measurements. I prefer a shorter, kind of more cap style beanie. I don't like any slouch at the back, so that's worked out quite well, and it's also meant I had some yarn left over, which is nice. I really enjoyed knitting this. This was a fun knit. I was a bit concerned at the start. So this is a free pattern now. So if you go and find it on Ravelry, it's there for free. I was concerned when I started that this might end up being a bit big for me. It's about 140 stitches that you cast on, I think, around that number. And I've used these same needles for about 120 stitches. And that kind of felt probably at the upper end of how big I want it to be. But this is my first all over 1x1 ribbing hat, and it's the way it kind of cinches in means that this actually fits really nicely. It's not quite as tight as some of my 2x2 ribbings that I've had, but it fits nicely, and I think I'll get a lot of wear out of it if I'm honest. It's a nice simple pattern, and it's a nice, I think this yarn, I'm really happy with this yarn that I chose for it. So this yarn is by the Woolen Wytch. It is the colourway, let me see if I can find the tag while I'm holding it up for you. It's the colourway Tide Worn Charm. So it's 100% BFL double knit, DK, and it's part of their Nautical Nexus subscription club that if you've watched before over the year, you'll have heard me talk about. So every month I get 1 skein of DK on this base, and the theme is kind of ocean exploration, things that you might find in the ocean, that kind of thing. I think my next month might have just shipped actually, or maybe I've just paid for it, I'm not sure. But I really love how it's kind of lightly variegated, a bit lighter than some of the other colours that I've had. And this is hat number 6 of the year from this subscription club, so I'm really, really happy with how that's gone. I messed up the increases a little bit. I don't think you can tell if I show you. I think where this yarn is a bit variegated, I think it covers it a little bit. What I did is on one of the increases, I just misread one of the stitches, so, and it then meant my knits and pearls stopped lining up. But I think I managed to kind of fudge it, because what I did was I just made sure I was always kind of knitting my knits and purling my pearls, and then just following the decreases. And I think then it kind of solved a few of the sins that might have shown up otherwise. But other than that, happy with the decreases. They were pretty simple. It was kind of a 20 row decrease, which sometimes I find intimidating, but actually it was really, really straightforward, really well explained and well written. I knit this on 3.25mm Chalgoo 16-inch circulars, which I knit pretty much all of my hats on Chalgoo 16-inch circulars. The pattern for this calls for a 3mm needle. However, I'd recently knit using this exact same base, using 3.25, and a little bit of me didn't want to buy new needles, a little bit of me kind of, well, I kind of checked the gauge and it seemed to pretty much match up, so I did it on 3.25, which I'm happy about. I guess it would be a bit snugger on 3, which might be nice, but I'm really happy with how the fabrics turned out, so I'm happy with that. I will definitely knit more of these, I think. I think it's a nice, I like a 2x2 ribbing, but this is a bit of a simpler vibe, I think. I think it would be a really good gift knit pattern, actually. Yeah, I think it would be really solid to gift knit for people, because you wouldn't have to measure their heads. And I always think I'm the kind of person who thinks gifts should be a surprise, so I don't know how you surprise someone with a hat if you ask them to measure their head, because there's no other reason you would need to ask a person that. But I don't know, maybe gifts don't have to be surprises. But I don't have anything else to say about that. That is the Troy Boy hat. Really happy that this is off the needles, really happy with it. I will definitely get a lot of wear out of this when it gets colder. It's a little bit chillier today. It's not chilly, but it's a little bit colder today in the UK, but we've been having quite a warm summer, so it's definitely not beanie wearing weather. But that is finished object number 1. Our next largest finished object is one that I'm also, I'm happy that, I don't need to say that I'm happy that these are off the needles. I'm happy that every time I finish something, I'm happy that I finished it. This is the Night and Day Cowl by Andrea Lowry. So this is one of Andrea's bandana style cowls. Let me put it on. I have to take my glasses to put it on. It's a little bit smaller than some of the other ones, and it's not quite as stretchy, so I wasn't able to block it out quite as much. But I actually really like the fit now that when it's on. It just means I have to take my glasses off to put it on, which is fine. I have quite a large skull, so that makes sense. So it's one of the Andrea Lowry beanies. It's not a beanie at all. It's one of the Andrea Lowry cowls that has the kind of dip down in the middle. This is my 3rd one of these I've knitted. So I've knitted 2 shift cowls and 1 traveller cowl, and then this is the Night and Day. I really, really like the style of it. I think it's really, really wearable. It's also, the construction is quite nice. They're just nice to knit. I could see myself making more of this pattern before again, and I'll definitely probably make another shift cowl at some point, and probably the same with the traveller. So it's a cowl, really. Let me take it off and I'll show you a bit more up close so you can see the stitch detailing. So it's a very simple pattern. You get this kind of checkerboard effect just by, it's just knits and pearls and then slip stitches, and they're quite deep slip stitches, which give you this quite pronounced raised area that goes on, and that goes on all the way around. What you do is you start from one, so this is the join at the back, so it's kind of shorter at the back. You start at one corner, you then work your way around, increasing and decreasing, and then you end at the bottom on the other side, and then you seam up the back. my seam's not the neatest. I'm still not the best at, can I show it? I'm still not the best at seaming, but I did the job. I did have a bit of a drama. Where was it? I can't remember. I think it was here. You can't really see. When I was grafting the end of the I cords together to bind off right at the end of the bind off, I sneezed, and then for some reason when I sneezed, my hand like jolted and pulled all the stitches off the needles. So I then had to kind of, because I had two I cords I was trying to join together, I couldn't work out which stitch went with which. I couldn't work out which direction the needles went to go through. So what I ended up doing was I ended up just almost finishing like a hat, where I just tied the yarn through every stitch and then pulled it tight and then wove it in. So it's not the neatest join at that point. You probably won't be able to see it, I don't think. It's not the neatest join, but I don't think you can tell too much, especially not where it's kind of crumpled up on my back. I knit this using the Crafty Birds Cozy DK base. So these are the two colourways on their own. This is what I have left. I have about 40 grams left in total. Maybe that's not true. Maybe I have closer to 60 actually, of 200 gram skeins. So it's a good, for just 2 skeins, you get like a decent sized product out of it at the end. This is the, did I say the Crafty Bird? It's part of their Fourth Wing collection, which if you're watching, I think you've got about 2 more weeks where you could pre-order from this collection before it's gone. And these are 2 of the solids that I picked from it. And I'm really, really happy with them. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. And I love the Crafty Birds Cozy DK base. It's like a really nice plump, kind of squishy DK, which I've used quite a lot. It's the same yarn that I used for my Traveller Cowl. Not in these colours, but it's the same yarn. I knit this on 4mm, I think from my Like It interchangeables, or they might not have even been interchangeables, they might have been just fixed circulars, but 4mm needles. I don't know what else to say about that. I really enjoy it. I'm happy with everything about it. I think it would be really fun to do with a solid and a variegated. So having one of these stripes being variegated and the other being solid, with like a strong contrast between the whole solid and the whole variegation. I think that would be a fun vibe. So maybe the next one I make, I'll do that, but I'm not going to cast one on that soon. With the Shift Cowl, I pretty much wanted to make another one straight away. With this, I'm kind of happy I've made it, and it's one of those patterns that's now in my head that if I see the right yarn for it, I'll definitely make another one, but I'm not desperate to have 2, if that makes sense. So that was the Night and Day Cowl by Andrea Lowry. My third finished object, one that I'm very happy I'm finished with, because it is my 3rd Advent project of the year. Is it my 3rd or is it my 4th? I think it's my 3rd Advent project of the year. And it's this. Let me unroll it. I literally finished weaving in the ends to this last night. So if I had filmed yesterday, this wouldn't have had all the ends woven in, because there were a lot. The pattern did say to weave them in as you go, and I was like, no, I'll just do it at the end. I regret that. I should have woven them in as I go. But this is my brilliant Brickwork by Amy Crumpton. I'm really, really happy with this. I think it's a really great use for this Advent, and also a really, really great pattern that I'll talk about a bit more in a sec. So this is using the Enchanted Forest Advent from 2024 from Greenlambkin yarn. So this is all I've got left. I've got a lot of yarn left. I've got about 200 grams left in here. So that's plenty to make another project with. And where it's a fade, I've not put them back in their order, but where it's a fade, there's loads that I could do with this. So I'm really happy with that. And then the main colour that I've used, or like it's the contrast colour really, the kind of bit in between, is Drops Flora in the colourway 22, which is this kind of soft off-white kind of beigey colour. I used a whole one of these and about 8 grams of this one to finish it off. And these are 50 grams, I think. Yes, these are 50 grams. So you could, if you would only need 1 skein of the contrast if you were to make this. Or you could, it would probably be a bit much. If you were to use hand dyed, it would probably be a bit tight using a 50 gram skein, but you might be able to get away with it. So the way this is constructed is it's quite a modular construction. So what you do is you start with this triangle at the end. You then build up, adding the bricks as you go. And you do that to this bit here, where it's kind of a bit of an arrow shape. You then make another one of those going this way, and then you join them both in the middle, like that. And that's what gives you the full effect. I made a slight modification. So in the pattern, on these 2 join sections, this cut triangle is smaller because they get you to like stripe in your other colours for a few rows here. I didn't want to do that. 1, because I didn't want to add more ends to the project. 2, I didn't want to just use a little bit more of the yarn, and none of this pattern is stripy. So I didn't want there to just be a stripy bit in the middle. So I've just done more of the contrast colour, which I think works. And it's a pretty decent sized wrap. This is unblocked because, I mean, I only just finished it. I've just not blocked it yet. I probably will block it. Saying that might be a lie. I might not block it. We'll see how I feel. But it's a pretty long, so you would probably wear it. I mean, it's a wrap, so you would maybe just kind of drape it over if you're... I don't know if I'll get a lot of wear out of it, if I'm honest. It might just be one of those things that was nice to make, because I don't know... I mean, I'd maybe wear it as a scarf, to be honest with you. But then again, I don't know whether... Maybe next Pride month, maybe I'd wear it as like a rainbow scarf. But I'm really happy with it. To be honest, I might put it up on a wall at some point. When I move, and I'm not moving imminently, but when I eventually move, I might see if there's a space on a wall to kind of, because I think it might look quite nice. Going kind of top to bottom, potentially, if the decor accounts for that. I knit this using 3.5mm needles. I think they were also like a non-interchangeables. I don't know why I'm showing it to you all bundled up. It's quite hard to show because it's so long. But I'm really, really happy with it. And again, I'm really happy to have finished an Advent project and to have worked through 3 of my 5 Advents. And we're just over halfway through the year, so I'm more than halfway done with those. Although actually December doesn't count, so maybe actually I'm a little bit behind. Or maybe I'm right on track, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is finished object number 3. Like I said, this is the Brilliant Brickwork by Amy Crumpton. I highly recommend this pattern. It's so well written, this pattern. It's great for it's got lots of diagrams that show you which bit you're on, and if you wanted to, it's obviously used as an advent, so it's obvious which colour I was going to use next. But if you wanted to use minis or just use like scraps or leftovers, it has charts in there so you can kind of work out where to put the colours and like then number up your colours if you wanted to. It's also got so many kind of tables of how many rows you need to do. So if you're someone that likes to cross off a row or likes to check something off, it has all of that in there as well, but it's still quite condensed, so it doesn't feel like you have to scroll through pages and pages. I really recommend the pattern. One thing I might do at some point, I'm not going to do it now because I want this project to kind of be done, but at some point I might come back and put an I-cord border around the edge. I don't mind the finishing of the border, it's just kind of a bit of a selvage edge where you slip the stitches, but I think it might just like be nice to have an I-cord on it, especially then because you'd have the same colour running round rather than having the different stripes ending at the edge. But I'm not sure. I might never do that, mainly because that's a lot of I-cord and I don't know, like, it feels almost unnecessary, but at some point might be a good one. I've never done an I-cord, like attached an I-cord. I've only ever done an I-cord as I'm knitting something. So if I ever need to do that for another project and I want to practice potentially, this might be a good one to kind of have ready to go. So that might end up happening. So you might see this again in the future when I've added an I-cord, or when I talk about that. You might never see it again because it's done. Or you'll see it when I talk about everything I knit this year, if you're desperate to see it on screen again later in the year. But that is all of my finished objects. I'm really, really happy with getting those 3 projects off the needles. The Brilliant Brickwork especially has taken longer than it should have. I finished 1/2 of that back at the start of June. It should not have taken me 2 months to finish the second half. It was just because kind of I got ill and then I was in a bit of a slump for a bit, so that's kind of why, but I should have really finished that probably about a month ago, so I'm happy it's done. And I'm really happy with the other 2 projects. Happy to have another hat. And I've said happy a lot. So let's talk about some whips, shall we? I have 4 whips to talk about into you, and they're kind of in 2 sections, so this probably won't take super long to talk to you about. Not that I'm in a rush. I actually never really know how long people, I mean, I don't aim for any time with these videos. I'm not like sat here being like, oh, I should talk more to make it longer. But I never know how long people like these kinds of videos to be. I would say, let me know in the comments, but I don't think I'd shorten them or lengthen them based on what you said, because I don't know what I'd talk about, or I don't know how I'd talk quicker if I was speeding through something, so. But interesting. This is my tube of yarn. What I'm doing with the Wool & Wytch Nautical Nexus is I'm making a hat with all of them, and then I'm taking the leftovers from that hat and putting it into a tube of yarn that I will then sew together and will be a cowl at the end of the year. So it's a nice way to see all the colours together and see how it's kind of changed throughout. But also, this colourway was in a hat that I gifted to someone, so I don't have this hat anymore, so it will also be nice that I'll be able to see all the colours still of the year. And I've added in the colourway that I used in the Troy Boy hat. I really, really like how stark the contrast is between the breaks. I love how much it changes. I'm just doing this on some Leica 3.5 16-inch circulars. And what I do is I just use pretty much all that's left. I had a bit less of the Troy Boy, so obviously it's a smaller section, and I'm fine with that. What I'm doing though is if I have, some hat patterns obviously use less yarn, if I have a lot left, this section here is about as long as I'll go, so then I will just cut the yarn and stop at that point. But for the most part, I use pretty much all the yarn that's left, which is nice because it means I'm getting another project out of it and I'm not wasting any yarn, because you then end up with like a little bit that's maybe hard to use in something. But that's it on this. It's a provisional cast on that I will then graft together at the end once I'm done with the year. So this will be a project that's just ongoing. I won't finish this probably till January next year, and then I'll have a nice little cowl in the dead of winter. I am keeping this in one of my, I've completely forgotten the name, Butternut Handmade bags by Conchetta at Butternut Handmade on Etsy. I really, really love these bags. Most of my project bags are made by them, and this is a nice one to just keep it in all year. So it just stays in there, and then I just pick it up every time I finish a hat, and I try to get the yarn in there pretty much straight away, because I don't want this to collect and just have loads of yarn left over, because then I don't, where it's just knitting in the round, eventually it becomes a bit tedious, so I don't want to have loads of yarn to put in this at the end of the year, which luckily I haven't so far, so we're making good moves there. My next 3 whips are all in this bag, so if you've watched before you'll know that one of the other subscription clubs that I'm doing this year is by, let me get a tag out so I can show you, Third Vault Yarns, which is the wonderful Lola. They have a club that is called The Universe at Your Doorstep. What the theme of it is kind of space exploration, and it's quite a different club from the others, because normally a club you kind of just get one skein or maybe a set of mini skeins. With this you could get a sweater quantity every month if you wanted to. What you do is you kind of chose the base you wanted and how many you wanted a month, and then you get the invoice for that every month, and then you get sent them. So what I'm doing is one skein of their DK, it's called their Caroline worsted. It's 100% superwash merino, but it's 115 grams, so you get a little bit more at the end, which is fun. And what I'm doing is I'm putting it into 3 projects. So I'm getting quite a lot out of this club, and I have put June's colourway into all 3 of these projects. So I will talk to you about those now. Let me get them out so I can show you them. I put them in like the same order each time because the amount I put in one is just based on what I've got left. So I get the yarn, I wind it up, obviously. And then the first project I'm making of that is the Just Feel Festive Shawl by Caleisha Ryan. So this is a granny stitch, it's not a shawl, I think it's the Just Feel Festive wrap actually. This is a granny stitch on the bias kind of project. So what you're doing is you're kind of increasing and decreasing on both sides. So you're ending up with these diagonal stripes, which is nice. This is the colourway I've just added in. So it's the lighter one at the end. Oh, that shows up quite well on camera. The thing that I love about this is because it's a club, you never know what you're going to get. And sometimes you get like really stark contrasty bits. And sometimes you get a bit of a lighter contrast, which is fun. For this, I've kind of changed the pattern a little bit because this pattern is written for an advent. It's written for 24 fingering weight minis held double. I'm using DK yarn, so I'm not holding it double, and then I'm just using 12 because it's a yearly club, so I'll get 12 skeins by the end of the year. And I'm doubling the width of each section to account for that because obviously I have half the colours. So each of these sections I'm doing 14 rows on. Which might be more than double. It might be that you're meant to do 6, but I think I was doing it by measurement. I'm not sure. It was 6 months ago that I made the decisions on this. I am making this using a 5mm clover hook, clover and more hook. These are the hooks I use for all my crochet. I really, really love them. And I use 5mm for, 5mm is actually a bit bigger than I normally use for a DK, but it's what the pattern called for. And I like the fabric it's giving, so I'm happy with that. And I really like this colour, I really like this orange pop, this kind of fiery section that we've got in the middle. We are halfway, are we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? We're halfway through and we've already got quite a considerable length on this, so it'll end up being quite a long wrap, which I think will be nice to kind of just have on over my shoulders over the winter. I like that these year-long projects are finishing in January, most likely, because then it means I'll have these like warm things for the winter. So I think that's good timing. I've not woven in any of my ends yet. I might do that soon because it's nice to finish a project and just have a little bit of finishing to do rather than to finish a project and then be like, right, I've got loads of ends to weave in now. But there won't be too many ends because it's only 12 different colours. So that's that really. So like I said, this is project 1 from the University or Doorstep club that I'm putting into. And it uses probably about 30 grams of the yarn, maybe 40 grams. It obviously changes slightly because my gauge isn't always perfect, but it uses under half of the skein. So what'll happen is I'll make that, and then I wanted another project that was kind of knitted so that I could see the way that the yarn works up in both crochet and knitting. So the next project I put into is the Scattering Petals Cowl by Dana Rae Makes. This is a really fun pattern. It's kind of a 2x2 ribbing, but what they are is they're offset. So you get these kind of offset bumps, which are like the petals that the pattern name's referring to. So this is the way that new yarn knits up. I like the way it knits up. I like the way, it's fun to be able to see the difference between the way something knits versus the way something is crocheted. Because some yarns are starkly different. Some yarns pretty much look the same between the two. Some yarns look like completely different things based on like the way they've been dyed, which is fun. So I've modified this pattern a little bit as well. This pattern's written for, I think DK. It might be fingering held double again, but obviously you can kind of make your own decision on that. What I'm doing though is I'm doing 2 bumps of each colour, whereas it only calls for 1. Again, because I'm getting 12 colours. The one thing on this is the pattern actually calls for, I think, 30 colours at the end. And you can either use them all once or use them all twice and get a shorter cowl or a longer cowl. I'm only going to end up with the equivalent of 24 colours. So once I finish this, it might end up being not particularly wide enough for me. I might have to then go and find potentially a couple of other DK, either minis that I've got or maybe just hold something ring double, just to add a few more rows in to finish it off so I've got it going. So this might end up not being finished at the end of the year because it might take me a while to find DK minis that go with the colour palette, but we'll just have to see how it goes. It might not be that difficult. But I'm really enjoying this. I'm knitting this on 4mm 16-inch Chalgoos. And then I've got my needle stoppers from Yarnworks on there, these little Highland Coos. And I really enjoy this, and it goes really quickly as well. I love a 2x2 rib, that's why I make a lot of 2x2 rib hats. So this is kind of a nice way to get that same thing, but in a slightly different project. I have a strong feeling that I will end up using one of this pattern for one of my advents in December. The advent I'm getting from the Crafty Bird I'm getting on DK, so I have a feeling that this will be the case with this pattern, because I think it would be nice to have where each row is a different colour. I think that will end up being a really nice vibe. But we'll see. It's not December yet. I don't need to make that decision right now. But that is project number 2 that I put that in. And then what I do with the rest of it, and this is the bit that varies because sometimes I use a little bit more yarn, and obviously skeins sometimes have a little bit more yarn in, a little bit less. So what I do with the rest is I put it into a granny wrap triangle. I've made another one of these. You can see it if I move out of the way. You can see it there. I made this using last year's Secret Treasure Box Blanket Club from Greenlambkin yarn that came with mini DK, with DK minis all year. So this year I'm making another one because I really like that. It's really nice to have wrapped over your shoulder. So this one I'm making out of this. So I've got slightly bigger sections and only one colour each month. But the amount I have left after these 2 projects does work out to be about 30 to 40 grams, which is kind of close to what was going in that project. So I think I'll end up with a pretty decent size. This is obviously half of it currently, so it will drop down and become quite a decent size for it. And again, it's just granny stitch. This is a pattern by Anaboos House and it's free on their website, so it's more of a recipe than a pattern. I think it's actually written for a chunky weight yarn. But you can just adjust your needle, not your needle, your hook to make it with any yarn. So this is another one with DK. I think at some point I might make one with fingering. I think it would be a good project to use my scraps in. My watch is listening to me. I'm not meaning to speak to you. So I'm also using the same 5mm hook for that because I know it worked in the other pattern, so I'm getting a similar gauge between them. And that's what I'm doing every month. So I try to get these done pretty quickly after the yarn comes in. Just so, again, where I've got 3 projects in these, I don't want the yarn to build up in this. So this is one I make sure that I get done each month, at least before the next yarn comes in. But normally it's kind of the weekend of when the yarn comes in. And then I keep them all in this bag, and I think they'll probably fit in this bag all year. It might become a bit tight as we get closer to the end of the year because obviously there's double the amount of yarn, but there's a good amount of space in there. But I might eventually need to split them into separate project bags. This is a bag that I made. It's got my dodgy bag pin on from Ali over at Little Drops of Wonderful. It's a weird shape, but it kind of works for this kind of project. I just didn't take into account the width when I was doing the box bottom, so it's ended up very tall and kind of slim, which wasn't the plan, but has worked out. I've used it pretty much every day since not every day, but it's always had a project in it since I've made it, so it can't be that bad, can it? So that is all of my whips that I've worked on since I last spoke to you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my plans for the next few weeks and kind of what my feelings are around my crafting for the next month or so, I guess. So I have only got 2 whips. That's not true. Other than like my year-long projects that aren't I can't finish until the end of the year. I have 3 whips that aren't finished at the moment. One of them I'm not going to talk about because it's a long-term blanket and I'm not really going to show it to you until it's finished. The other 2 whips though are kind of what I'm planning on trying to finish for the next 2 weeks. So the next time I see you, I'm hoping to have both of these finished. And then I'll talk about some cast-on plans that I have as well for kind of the future. So the first one is in this bag. So I have actually worked on this a little bit. I worked on it last night because I finished everything else and I just wanted something to knit while I watched some TV. But I've not worked on it very much, but I also am almost finished with it. So this will definitely be finished by the next time I speak to you. If you've watched before, you will have heard me talk about this pattern a lot. This is the Salish Cap by, oh, I didn't write down the name. I think it's Mary Pranica. Let me just double check the pattern name so I'm not lying to you. I'm pretty sure it's Mary Pranica. Where are all of my patterns? Salish Cap, Mary Pranica. Kind of done in collaboration with Blue Sky Fibres, which are a yarn company over in America. And it's a all over 2x2 ribbing hat that you hold 2 fingering weight yarns double with to get this mild effect. This is probably my 4th of these, maybe my 5th. I really, really love it as a pattern. It was inspired by by Kevin over at Needles at the Ready. And since I've started making them, I just couldn't stop. This one in particular, so it uses about 40 grams of each fingering weight yarn. So it's great for using leftovers if you've got kind of half a skein left from a project. For this one though, I bought yarn. So I bought 2 skeins of the Isager Merlin yarn, which is an 80% wool, 20% flax. And I think in this context, flax is the same as linen. So 80% wool, 20% flax, they're 50 grams, which means there's plenty for that. And I have colourway as 16, which is this blue colourway, and 70, which is this kind of, it is pink, but I feel like it's almost a light red. Does that make sense? I could talk to you for ages about how pink doesn't make sense because pink is just light red in the same way that there's light blues. I don't understand why there's a different colour. But I won't. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm holding these double to make this and I'm enjoying it. So I'm just at about 7.5 inches. I'm probably going to knit this one to 9 inches before I do the decrease. So there's a good chance this will be finished this weekend, to be honest. I might power through. The decreases are really simple on this pattern. It's quite a short decrease section. And I like it. My plan is, so like I said, to have this finished by the time, next time I see you, I'm going to hold myself to not casting one of these on for a while because I just keep making them, and the problem is because they're really quick, they're knit on 5mm needles, so I've got 5mm 16-inch chalgoos in here, so they go quite quickly, which means I end up picking them up more than my other hat projects, and I need to be able to just focus on my other hat projects. So I might not make one of these till next year. I might end up making one or a couple as gift knits though, so I might do some later in the year for gift knits, but for now this is going to be my last one for a while, which I think is for the best because I started the year as someone who didn't wear hats. Last year I think I made 2 hats, one for me, one for my boyfriend. This year I've made over 10 and so I'm going to have to wear hats a lot in the winter, but also it means I need to rein it in because like, what am I going to do, wear a different hat every day for like the whole of winter? Like maybe that would be fun, maybe that is who I want to be, but I don't want, maybe people would start calling me Hat Boy. I don't want that. That's not a nickname that I'm driving for. So this is, I don't actually know who made this bag. I got this from Yarnworks as well. It's kind of a tie-dyed, I really like it. If I'm honest, I don't know why I bought it. I was buying some needles from Yarnworks and there's something about a basket that has £11 worth of stuff in that feels like a waste of the shipping. So I ended up adding this bag and the yarn that's in it. The only reason I have this yarn was to kind of just make it worth more ordering online. But I like it and it's decent for a hat. It's a decent size. So that's goal number 1 for the next time I see you. Goal number 2 is something that I also should have made more progress on, but I haven't worked on since I last spoke to you. Or I might have added a little bit in since I last spoke to you. And this is my Close to You shawl, which you can tell I haven't worked on it because all the yarn is tangled over my needles. Let me just sort that out. There we go. I have a progress keeper on here, but I don't think I moved it since I last showed this, so I don't think that's actually representative of anything real. This is the Close to You shawl by... oh, I don't know. I didn't write down the pattern name. Let me tell you, because it was almost rude talking about patterns without telling you who made them. It's Justyna Lukowska. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it's a fun kind of, you make these large eyelets on these kind of fronds that go up the side, and then you have this plain garter section that kind of increases outward. I really, really enjoy knitting on this. I really enjoy the pattern. I don't know why I don't pick it up more. So, I mean, I do know why I don't pick it up more. It's because I wanted to finish those other projects. But now this is my only shawl on the needles. I'm going to try and put a lot of time into this to try and get this finished by the next time I see you. I'm knitting this on 4mm of my Lycra interchangeables, and the yarn is from Lay Family Yarns, and it's the collaboration that they did with Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful called Wonderland Walk. So it's this really fun variegated green colourway, and this is one of the skeins that Ali actually dyed, which is fun. So I knew I wanted this to be in a single skein project. I didn't want to mix it with anything else, but what? I don't know. So this project's great for that because it's a great single skein project. You get quite a lot of size for it just being a single fingering skein project. So I'm really happy with it. I'm going to try and just put a bit of time into this every day, and then eventually we'll be done. I'm talking about it like I am enjoying knitting it as well. The only reason I wasn't picking it up is because it was just like, it's not quite where it's only a single colour. It's not quite as satisfying a knit as my other projects that hats are quite simple, and then everything else had like different colours in, so I was seeing like stripes grow and sections grow. So it didn't have that factor, but now that it's my only shawl, it will definitely get some work on, and I'm really happy to have it finished. Oh, it's obviously not finished. I'm really excited for it to be finished. Might end up being a gift knit, but I might want to keep it because I like the yarn. I like that it's a yarn that Ali dyed. This is the bag it's in, another one of Butternut Handmaid's bags. Obviously, flowers all over it, which felt appropriate for Wonderland Walks. I semi-try to match up my project bags with patterns and with yarn, but it doesn't always work out, and I don't want to buy more just to have a pattern, just to have a project bag that matches up. Although I am considering, I think I might buy a Christmassy project bag this year so that I can put my Advent project in it. So I might do that. I might have some seasonally relevant ones, but I have quite a lot of project bags and I don't need more, because eventually I would just have some that I never use, and that would feel like a waste when other people could have them and use them. So these are my two main goals of like current whips that I want to finish. I have two other things that I want to start before I next see you. One is my next hat. So this is the this is colourway 7 of the Nautical Nexus club by Wool and Wytch. This is called Tethered in Silt, and it's this really wonderful, moody, deep colour that's kind of lightly variegated and has these nice kind of pops of like, there's some yellowy bits in there. I think it's really fun. I'm excited to cake this up, to be honest with you, to see what it looks like caked up. I think that this is going to become a hatch hat, which is also one of the Blue Sky Fibres patterns. I don't know who makes it. I've not bought the pattern yet. So it potentially might be a hatch hat. If not, it will probably be quite a simple hat. I think where it's like a dark colour. There's a bit of me that's considering making my own hat pattern up and doing something moss stitch. To be fair, I could probably just find a moss stitch hatch pattern that isn't like a revolutionary idea. It might also, I have a feeling, I have an idea that I think this would look nice in moss stitch. So that might end up being what happens, but this is definitely something that I'm going to cast on before I next see you, because I don't want to fall behind with these. I don't want to end up having loads of hats to make at the start of next year. and this is July's colourway, and August colourway will probably come, it might arrive before I film my next video, so this might be finished before I next see you as well, because that would be a nice place to be, but we'll see. I'm not going to promise that. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about, I've just realised I've not got the yarn, so I'm going to go get the yarn and then I'll come back and I'll show you that, so one sec. So the next project that I want to cast on before I next see you is using this yarn, which is the John Arbor Knit by Numbers in their DK base. And I'm going to make the Maxine hot water bottle cover by Laura Penrose. So this is some yarn that my boyfriend picked out last year, and I said I was going to make him this hot water bottle last year, and I haven't even started yet. So my plan is to try and get it done by the time it gets colder this year. So then he won't shout at me. He won't shout at me, he's not very loud. But so that's going to be a cast on. It's a colourwork. I'm using obviously 3 colours. It's a colourwork hot water bottle. I've only done colourwork once, and it was one of the things I wanted to learn this year, and I want to have done it more than once by the end of the year as well, so that I can kind of feel a bit more confident in it. I don't want to just do it once and then never do it again. So that's also a planned cast on. I just need to look up, I need to buy the pattern and look up. I think I'll probably need to buy needles for this, because I reckon I'll probably have to do it magic loop at some point. So I think my camera's overheating. One sec. It's not even that warm. I'm going to pause here and then I'll come back and I'll talk about a couple more things and then we'll be done. So bear with me, I'm going to let my camera cool down. There we go, so the camera's calmed down. So what was I saying? So that's another cast on that I want to make before the next video. I don't think this definitely won't be finished. I might have also not made very much progress on it by the next video, but I'm hoping to have maybe cast on, or if not, at least have all the tools and the pattern at the bare minimum. So that is the things I'm planning on starting. And then I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about advents going forward. So not this year's advents, but the advents I already have. So if you've seen before, you all know that I have 2 more advents left over. This was the All of Time and Space advent by The Lonely Knitter, which was a kind of a space Doctor Who themed and is also a fade from last year. And then this is the weekly advent from James Makes Yarn, which was Beanie Baby themed from last year. So these are the 2 I have left. My original goal for the year was to have used all of my advents by the time it got to December this year. I'm starting to think that might not be the move, mainly because I don't know what I want to make with either of these yet, and I don't want to just rush through them to have them done before December. I want them to be in projects that make sense for them. This one, where it's a weekly advent, is obviously also slightly different from like normal advent patterns, because really if I want to use this all in one project, it needs to be a 5 skein project, which will probably end up being quite a large shawl, which I just don't know if I have the time or the capacity for this year. So this one might slip to next year. I also need to find a shawl. There's not loads of contrast between the colourways. There's a little bit between, some of them have quite high contrast between them, but between the 5, there isn't like 5 distinct contrasts between them. So it would either need to be a shawl that worked with that, or I'd maybe need to add in like a contrast colour to separate sections, and then again it would need to be a shawl that allowed for that. So I think I'm going to take the pressure off and say I'm not going to work on this year, and that instead it's going to be a next year project, and that I might stop thinking of it as an advent project and start thinking of it as a 5 skein project. Potentially it might be 5 single skein. My watch keeps listening to me. Potentially it might be 5 single skein projects. I don't know how resigned I am to the idea of it all being in one. Maybe I'll get 2 or 3 projects from it and use a couple of the colourways together in various things. Because I really love the yarn. I really love the vibe of the Beanie Babies. I think James Makes Yarn is a really, really solid dyer. So I want to make sure they're in the right projects rather than just in a project that's done before December. That's kind of no longer my goal. And then with this one, by The Lonely Knitter, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do with this. It's very pretty. I hope the rustling isn't too bad in these plastic bags. I don't want to take them all out because obviously there's 24 mini skeins in here. I really don't know what to do with this one, if I'm honest. It's very pretty, and I enjoyed opening it in December. Where it's a fade again, I can't quite work out what kind of project I want it to be in a fade. This is also, these colourways are very bright and not my, like, not typically what I dye with, but there'll be kind of fun pops of colour here and there. These colourways are also quite bright, but where there are lots of purples and pinks, I'm not sure what I'd make that I'd be excited about in these colours. So I have two thoughts. One, the thing I need to make for this needs to be a gift for someone, probably my mum, and it will probably be some kind of shawl, or I need to give the Advent away to someone, again probably my mum because she knits, but I don't know, it might be that I end up doing like a giveaway with this if I don't end up wanting and feeling myself wanting to knit on it. So I'm not sure with this one. This one is a bit of a challenge where it's very pretty yarn, but it's not yarn that's like for me, which means I want to always be excited about the things I'm making, and I just don't think I would be excited about using this. I might be able to get myself excited about using it if it is in a project like a gift for someone that I care about, because then I'll be excited to give it to them. But if it's not, if I don't find a good gift project for it, I might just give it away as yarn. And then it can be something that someone else would be excited to make something with. Because I think that's the real, to me, the value of yarn isn't so much in the thing that you've made with it, it's more in the making of the thing. So like the reason I love this yarn is I am excited to wear this yarn. I'm excited for it to be a hat that I own, but I'm more excited to knit with it. I'm very much a process knitter more than a product knitter. So I think that's where my kind of battle is with that one. And I'm not sure. So it might again be something I don't make a decision on this year. It might be something I do make a decision on this year but don't knit. And kind of if I'm going to give it to someone, I might do that this year, because it might be nice for someone to have in the month of December. It might be nice for someone to have as an Advent that they could use. I could even potentially kind of parcel it up and give it to someone as an Advent. So that's kind of my slight change in thinking for my Advents. Part of that is because it's already August, and the knitting that I spoke about in terms of those other projects and the new things I'm going to cast on is probably going to be a big chunk of my August knitting, especially where I'm going away for a few days towards the end of the month. At the end of the month, it's also the Southern Wool Show, which I'll be going to, so that's the last weekend. I'm not sure which day we're going to yet. I'm going to that with my family. And there'll obviously be yarn opportunities there. And then we're kind of getting into gift knitting and Cowl season. So I'm probably, unless for some reason it looked awful, probably going to do the Stephen West Cowl, which will be in October, and will probably lead me a bit into November. So that then gives me September and November for any gift knitting, and obviously the first 25 days of December. I always discount December as like a month for getting stuff done, but there's obviously 25, you get through most of December before Christmas. So I need to start considering that as well and work out what I want to do for gift knits. In my next video actually, I might have a bit of a plan for gift knits. I might sit and talk to you about the things I'm going to make. Or if not, that might be a separate video that I do at some point, depending on how much I think I need to talk to you about that. And then that's everything for the Knitting and Crochet. So let me talk to you about the books that I have read for, because I quite like talking about books at the end of this video. If you're not interested in books, then thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in a couple of weeks for episode 31. If you are interested in my books, then I will talk to you about what I've been reading. The app that I use to track my reading on has changed recently, so I need to... So, when did I post my last video? I posted it on the 20th of July, so since the 20th of July, I've only finished one book, so this won't take very long. I finished, and I'll put it up here, I finished The Brightness Between Us by Elliot Schrafer. This was the sequel to The Darkness Outside Us. It's as sequels go, it was pretty decent. I gave it 3.25 stars. I definitely preferred the original. So the story of this is, it's set in the far future, and it's kind of a queer, kind of romance sci-fi, but it's about a kind of world where there's like this big civil war back on Earth, and these two people have been sent out on a mission, and it's kind of set on the spaceship. And there's kind of some mystery about what's going on or happened back on Earth, and kind of what they're trying to do and who they are in the first one. And then this picks up from that. I can't really tell you too much about the plot of this one because it will spoil the first one. I really enjoyed this book. I will say, it's not as good as the first because it kind of tried to tell two stories. This one tells you two stories at two different points in time. And both of those stories were solid. I just didn't feel like we got a good enough time with either of them, so they both felt maybe a bit lighter than they could have. One of them is set as like a direct sequel to the first one, like timeline, or it's like there's some times past, but it's like direct. I was more interested in that than I was in the one in the other timeline, but I felt like you got more of the other one. And there were some fun revelations, and there was some fun character growth and things like that. It just wasn't quite as good, but I gave it 3.25 stars, so I enjoyed it. And that is all I have been reading for the last couple of weeks. I'm on another book, but I'll tell you about that when I finish that. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then giving it a thumbs up, giving it a like would be great. If you're not subscribed, then subscribing would also be great. Get us to 600. It only needs a couple of you to do it, but over 600 is also fine. I'm not setting a hard limit at 600. But then I will see you in a couple of weeks for episode 31, and we will talk about more knitting and crochet. So I hope you have a good couple of weeks, and I will see you then. Bye.